Good morning. Today's horse talk number 3, and it's on bits. Bits can be very controversial, what kind of bit to use. They can also be misunderstood. A lot of people have misunderstanding of what bits are and what they do. Before we get into the bits, I want to talk a little bit about bitless. You can have bitless halter and lead line. You can have hackamores, mechanical hackamores, side pulls. There's all kinds of bitless bridles out there. The important thing about a bitless bridle is train your horse to ride bitless. In other words, if your horse comes very easily into your hands when you stop him and when you back him up, when you ask for lateral flexion, when you ask for vertical flexion, if he comes easily to you in all those areas, then the chances are you can ride him bitless and have a good time out there. But train your horse to go bitless. And the different bitless bridles have different feels. Some of the, you get the side pull, you get the cross underneath, they get different feels and they pull on different parts of the horse's face. So train them in those areas. But enough about bitless. The topic today is bits. So in the area of bits, there's basically 2 types of bits primarily. There is a snaffle bit and there is a shank bit, or a leverage bit. And we'll talk about those 2. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because I don't want the video to be so long, but there's thousands of videos out there on bits. We'll talk first about the snaffle bit. In my hands I have a snaffle bit, and 2 portions of the snaffle bit. You've got the mouthpiece, which goes outside of the horse's mouth, and the cheek piece that goes on the outside of the horse's mouth, and the mouthpiece that goes inside the horse's mouth. This is a single jointed mouthpiece, and it's probably 3/8. It's good size, and the thicker the mouthpiece, the easier it is on the horse, and the smoother it is, the better it is on the horse. If you've got a twisted wire, it's not smooth and it's thin, you can put some damage on a horse's mouth in the wrong hands. So this is a single jointed loose ring, and you've got, this is a full cheek, and as you can see, the cheek piece is long, and it's got the same kind of nutcracker single jointed mouthpiece. Okay, now snaffles have different, as you can see, different mouthpieces, and I'll show you a couple different kinds. And these are cheek pieces. You got cheek pieces like this. We talked about a loose ring. Here's an egg butt, and you can see the mouthpiece here is a 2-piece with a rotator cuff in the middle to give the horse something to play with. This one also has a little bit of a port. You can see there's a little bit of tongue relief right here, so it's got a bit of a port. All kinds of mouthpieces, all kinds of cheek pieces. But what makes a snaffle a snaffle? A snaffle is a direct pull bit. In other words, when you pull 1 pound on your rein, the horse feels 1 pound in his mouth. If you pull 10 pounds on the reins, the horse will feel 10 pounds in his mouth. And that's what a snaffle is all about. Okay, it's not about the mouthpiece, it's not about the cheek piece, it's about direct pull, 1 for 1. There is no leverage. Snaffles are usually used independently on the rein. You lift up that shoulder, you turn that head, lift up that shoulder, turn the head. They're excellent for training horses, and like I said earlier, some horses stay in these snaffles their entire life and do what you want them to do. Okay, so that's a snaffle. The other thing I want to say about snaffles is the curb strap or curb chain. You got snaffles. This happens to be a D ring, and it's got a single dog bone leg in the middle, so it's a 3-piece mouthpiece, and you can see there's a chain involved. Okay, what you use this for is when you're training a horse, or even a horse that doesn't give his mouth freely and you're training him, you don't want this whole bit to slide through his mouth and end up in the ear somewhere. does you absolutely no good. So the curb chain or the curb strap that goes on the bit prevents it from going through. It's really good when you're starting to train them and they're a little bit difficult. On the one I showed you earlier, the full cheek, you really don't need that curb strap because you can't pull this long cheek piece through. Let's talk a little bit about shanks or leverage bit, which is the second type. You've got one type is a snaffle, direct pull, 1-for-1. Now we get into shanks or leverage bits. Here's a leverage bit, and it's got a single joint nutcracker mouthpiece, and it's fairly straight in the shank. The shanks are pretty straight. The area above the mouthpiece is called the purchase. The area below the mouthpiece is called the shank. The ratio between the purchase and the shank is the amount of leverage you have. So in this case, if you have a 1-to-2, then you get a 1-to-2 ratio. So for every 1 pound that you pull in a horse's mouth, the horse feels 2. You pull 10 pounds, the horse feels 20 pounds. This particular bit has got a swivel on its cheek pieces, nutcracker effect, and it's got a pretty straight shank. This is referred to as a tom thumb. There are those that say tom thumbs are severe bits, but like any bit, the bit is only as bad as the hands, but the hands have to be educated. Okay, so this bit can be severe because it's straight. You got some good leverage on it, and you got a nutcracker effect. This mouthpiece can go up into the palate and do some damage in the wrong hands. And I emphasize, you can have a horse that's trained in a shank bit or a leverage bit. And you can say that all day, but if the hands are not educated and you put it in somebody's hands that don't know what they're doing, you can harm a horse's mouth, period. Here, let me show you this one. This is also a shank bit, and it's got a mouthpiece similar to, it's like a Mylar bit. It's got a roller in the middle, it's 3-piece. It's got a little bit of a port for relief of the tongue, and you can see on the side, it's got a shanks, and the shank's got a little bit of angle to it. It's got a little bit of angle to it. It's less severe than a straight one, and you can see the purchase here is about, and the shank is about 2-to-1, 3-to-1. So if it's 3-to-1, then for every pound you pull, he feels 3. You pull 10, he feels 30. Okay? Thing about shanks, you get transition bits as well, where the shank isn't that long, and when you pull them, they don't feel it as much. But again, in the wrong hands, lots of times in Western shows, you have to have a shank bit, and they're controlled with one hand pretty much. Now this one has twists, so you can use it kind of to turn the head left and right if you wanted to. What else to say about leverage bits and shank bits? Shank bits are always used with a chain. So you have a shank or a leverage bit, it is always used with the chain. The reason it's used with a chain is that's where you get your leverage. You get that chain, say it's like this, and what happens is when you put it on the horse, you usually have about 2 fingers under the chin where the curb chain is, and then as you rotate this, you rotate it and it should engage, the chain should engage at about 45. If it's engaging when it's in the mouth and touching the back of the chin, it's engaging way too early. And if you can rotate this shank all the way up and it doesn't engage, then it's way too loose. It should engage in about 45 degrees, and that's going to give that pressure on the pole, on the nose, on the bars of the mouth, and on the chin. So you get a lot of leverage on those horses, and they feel it in different parts of their head. Okay, bottom line, it's a pretty simple explanation. The thing I wanted to get through is there's 2 primary types. A snaffle, which is a direct pull, 1-for-1, and a shank, which is a leverage bit based on the height of the purchase and the height or the length of the shank. If it's 1-to-4, then you're getting every pound, you're getting the horse feels 4 pounds. Pull 10, horse feels 40. And then educate your hands. If you're using a shank, you want to have soft hands, and that's the whole purpose. A lot of people will go from a snaffle to a shank to get better action with the horse with less input. So very little changes get big changes in the horse, and the more advanced horses. I know that's simple. I hope that helps.